In the early euphoric days of my Christian life, I thought the church was perfect. I loved to go to my local church and listen to sermons, pray, worship God, and talk about Jesus with my friends. That honeymoon period only lasted for several years, and then I stumbled into reality. I realized that Christian people were no different from anybody else. Their sins, however, were magnified because they claimed a deeper sanctity. I was disillusioned. I began to read the writings of Marx and Trotsky. I read Che Guevara's motorbike diaries and asked myself the question, is Marxism a more viable alternative than Christianity to the injustices and problems in the world? I was rescued from my disillusionment by a very simple discovery. I could either be part of the problem or part of the solution. I recognized that the church was not perfect, that we were all in construction. Some of us needed repair. Some of us were at the very beginning of the process of building. Others were more experienced, but none of us were perfect. We didn't stand because of a unique sanctity or holiness. We were Christians because we've been accepted by the grace of God. That in a moment of extravagant generosity, God had adopted us into his family. That for me was a wonderful discovery. With the discovery that I was either part of the problem or part of the solution, I developed a new passion and love for the church. Not one particular branch of the church, but the whole church, as tributaries feeding into this great river, which is the Church of God. So the plan is to cycle from Jerusalem to Lindisfarne. We're going to be looking at the church in Jerusalem. The church began in Judea, in Jerusalem, following in the footsteps of the great missionary pioneer Paul and seeing how he founded churches. What were the principles? We then move on through Turkey into Europe, and we study the development of the church, and we're asked some big questions. Why did a small provincial sect like the church become the dominant religion of the Roman Empire within 3 centuries? And then as we move out across Europe, we study the historic development of the church. We look at the Protestant Reformation, which split the church. And then as we move further north, we'll look at the contemporary church. How does the modern church compare with the church of the first century? Do we still have the same practices? Are we still as dynamic? Is there anything that the early church could teach us today? The letter was written before the divide between professional clergy and laity had neutralized the people. The Western world is still recovering from this tragic rift. The church in Ephesus was gripped by the truth of the body of Christ. Every member, infused with a sense of personal destiny, are mobilized to be busy in the service of the Lord. Church statisticians tell us that only 10% of people in our churches are busy in the Lord's work. 10%! If this people inertia existed in the corporate world, we would be facing a far more catastrophic meltdown than the Euro crisis. Today I've been reflecting and asking myself one question. Why do I constantly come back to Lindisfarne? Why do we use this island as the beginning of one documentary series and the conclusion of another? What is the magnetism of this place? I don't think it has anything to do with the stark lunar scenery of this island or the wildlife. The monks that lived on this rock were some of the most significant characters in British church history. People like St. Aidan and St. Cuthbert were remarkable men of God. They were wacky and wild. They were extreme. But they had one thing in common, a terrific passion for God. But I feel that I've gone interstellar, that I've stepped through a wormhole and arrived in a parallel universe, which is completely different from the world that I've come from. So it was symbolic of their lives. They wanted everything that wasn't God stripped away from them. They didn't want any distractions. And then from this island they crossed the causeway into the world and transformed the north of England and transformed parts of Europe. So this island is the island of beginnings and ends. So we'll go from this island to the 7 churches of Asia, and when we come from Jerusalem, this will be our ultimate destination. So when we come here, we're truly home. I want to capture the excitement, the adventure, the camaraderie, the craziness, and all the wonderful stories that come from a ride. A cycle tour is an extended narrative of 1,000 different stories.
Andrew has known me since almost before I was born, and from the time I was young, I can remember him regaling me with stories of great adventures, introducing me to great fiction, and basically priming me for the life of an adventurer. I've always heard of these stories, and now I get to be a part of them.
I think when you're at the start of a journey, it's like a mountain that you've got to climb.
Along these roads, sometimes something fun happens, sometimes something a little dangerous happens.
I'm going to find out things about myself. I'm going to find out how fit I am.
Sometimes a little disaster, sometimes a little love story along the way too. But it's all part of the adventure, and we're willing to take whatever comes our way.
One of the bishops, who was known as St. Aidan, was given a horse by the king, and it was a top quality horse. It was the equivalent of a luxury BMW. And he took the horse and gave it to a beggar, and the king was really upset. He said, "Look, I could have given any old nag to that man, or even a donkey. You've given my top horse to the man." And Aidan looked at him and he said, "You're more concerned about the son of a mayor than you are a son of God." And he rebuked the king. And what he would do is go everywhere walking and just talking to people about God. I find it amazing that this tiny rock chucked into the North Sea was a centre of Christianity, so dynamic that it brought Christianity to this area and also to various parts of Europe. So we're cycling through Christian church history.
I wasn't aware of Lindisfarne before Andy brought me on this tour, and I'm not a practicing Christian. And hearing the stories he's told me about the monks here really makes me respect them, respect the Christian religion, and just respect, the hardships that they endured. It makes me having to cycle over the causeway with a little bit of rain a little bit more bearable.
So this is an epic pilgrimage. This journey will be a journey that embraces a number of different realities. It will be a journey in as we discover lessons about ourselves. It will be a journey out as we travel through countries. It will be a journey up to learn about God.
Whether I have a spiritual experience, I don't know. I can't say, but I'm with, guys here that are showing me that they've had spiritual experiences, and I'm open to it. My mind's an open book.
And it will also be a journey together with camaraderie, laughter, trials, difficulties that we will overcome.
Makes me feel like I'm in touch with the earth again.
Yeah, it's good to cook as well. You have incinerated food. So you wouldn't have the problem with flatulence that you've been having with my bean stews.
Oh, I wouldn't complain. That's how we got the fire started.
Everything is moot. What I want to do in this documentary series, The Church Then and Now, is to go on a journey to discover the church, to go to the places where the church began and look how the church was formed, and then study the development of the church to the present day, and see how churches today conform to the churches of the 1st century AD. It will be an epic journey of discovery, the ultimate pilgrimage.